What's going on, everybody? This is Afro Think Tank. I want to talk about something that's very, very important when it comes to Americans and literacy. Most Americans are illiterate when it comes to politics. That's just the solid and simple truth. And because most of America are illiterate when it comes to politics, and I'm not saying they're stupid when at all, but when it comes to politics, they're illiterate. Okay? Illiterate. Legitimately illiterate. All right? And because of that, they make stupid political decisions and they go vote for their worst interests. Just like Latinos are very illiterate when it comes to politics. That's why they vote for the people that want to deport them. And they're proud of it. Okay? They vote for their own problems because Latinos are politically illiterate. For the most part, most of them, especially those West Coast ones. All right? Most of white America are politically illiterate. That's why they chose to pick the white supremacists over the overly qualified candidate Kamala Harris, because their racism, their bigotry, their sexism, their illiteracy of how politics works made them think that choosing Donald Trump, right, based off their biases was going to be a good decision for them. Black people are the most literate people in America. Why are we the most literate when it comes to politics? Because politics has been used to attack us. Therefore, we have been forced to become literate about politics. Because politics is life. And politics is what we have used to elevate ourselves in society. We had to know politics because that's the weapon used against us. We're forced to know this. But even so, there are Black African Americans who are very illiterate about politics. That's why these Black people voted for Donald Trump. That's why these Black people vote Republican. Because they're illiterate politically. All your social media gossip girls who infuse themselves in politics because it's the algorithm said it's political season. They are illiterate about politics. That's why when they deviate from talking about celebrity junk, and when they deviate from talking about what this podcaster did, or what that hip hop person did, or what Tasha K said about such and such, or what this girl did on this reality show, or what this dude did when they deviate from the things that they do know about, and they jump into the world of politics, which is a serious topic, because they're so illiterate, they contribute to the propaganda that has us as Americans where we are today. Because of the illiteracy of America and their lack of understanding of how politics works, they pick Democrat and Republican based off popularity, based off a person that's most known, instead of based off actual policy. You can always find the illiterate political pundit, all right, because they will say, you're a Democrat shield, but they can't explain why. They would say, the Democrats have never done anything for us, but then they can't explain politically what it is that they wanted from the Democrats, that they campaigned for and advocated for from the Democrats that they did not get. And they cannot explain to you why they vote Republican. They will just tell you that they are Republican. They will tell you that they are conservative and cannot explain to you why they are conservative. Because they're politically illiterate. But a lot of these politically illiterate social media commentaries, gossip girls, right? They jump into the political algorithm because, it's trendy, right? Because everybody's talking about it. But they contribute to the ignorance and the spread of false propaganda. An illiterate person, a politically illiterate person, will repeat something like this. Barack Obama never did anything for black people. When a literate person could literally show you everything Barack Obama did for black people. An illiterate person would never research it because they don't know how to research political topics. So they listen to another YouTuber who's probably illiterate, and they take for what they say, and then the illiteracy becomes hearsay. That's why we have all these black dudes who talk shit about all the black people who participate in politics in order to uplift the black community, right? So here's the thing. Illiterate black people, all right? Illiterate black people who involve themselves in politics, right, will tell you not to vote, then complain about legislation being passed. They will tell you not to participate in the political process while campaigning for a political party that does not, in fact, have their best interests at hand and, in fact, have declared that they are, in fact, the enemy. Because they're so politically illiterate, they don't comprehend that. You see, a politically literate person would look at what is a Democrat, what is a progressive, what is a liberal. Is there a difference between liberal and leftist? Is there a difference between progressiveness and liberal and centrist? What is a conservative? What does conservatism mean? Are there liberal Republicans? Where are the liberal Republicans? You see, if you was a literate political observer, you would know that all the liberal Republicans have become and moved over to the Democratic Party and became conservative or quasi-central Democrats. All right? See, I'm literate in politics. That's why when FBA, who are an organization of xenophobic, hateful, illiterate Americans who happen to be of African descent for the most part, and white trolls, and mixed mulatto, racially ambiguous individuals who have other issues, they are so illiterate that when you talk to them, they can't put together proper sentences to even understand what they're talking about. That's why, if you notice, FBA is so illiterate, they can give you one sentence, and when you challenge them with real information, the conversation has ended. Okay? Now we have grifters who realize that there are people that are more illiterate than them, and they're just smart enough in other ways to take advantage and monetize the illiteracy of their subscribers. And the system of America promotes illiterate behavior because politicians love illiterate people. That's why Donald Trump said he loves Republicans because they're stupid. Stupid people. He can shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and would not get arrested. And he was correct. Because as stupid, as politically illiterate Donald Trump is, he's smart enough to know that there are people who are even more illiterate than him. And he knows how to take advantage of them. Okay, you understand what I'm saying? So we have to become more literate in how politics actually works and sharpen our pencil, right? So that we can be smarter and make better decisions so we won't find ourselves in this situation. This is not the first time this has happened. Nations crumble when the nation's population becomes illiterate and complacent. America has become illiterate and complacent. We are not the smartest group of people on the planet anymore. I don't know if we ever was, right? But in all its totality, America is a very illiterate place. And not just politically illiterate, but illiterate in many other ways. Politicians do not want a well-educated populace, because a well-educated populace will not allow a politician to come to their so-called hometown, go to a town hall, give them a bunch of word salad, and then roll out. A literate political population will hold their politicians accountable and wouldn't keep re-electing the very same rich white dude in a suit that has destroyed their community, whether in the black community, Latino community, or the white community. A literate political participant would actually pay attention to the bills and the legislation that a potential candidate wants to pass. A literate political observer or participant would pay attention to the bills and legislation that a potential candidate has passed before if they were in any form of politics, to see what is their actual record, to know what they would do in the future. But since I said most of America is not politically literate, they don't do that. It just ends up being a popularity contest. That's how Ronald Reagan got elected. Popularity contest. He was one of the first idiotic presidents. He was pre-Trump, before Trump. Then you had George Bush, another illiterate politician. He was slightly smarter than Reagan. And now we have done the last three Republicans have been the dumbest Republicans, the dumbest politicians, the most politically illiterate politicians in American history. And look where it has gotten us. And every time it took a literate Democrat politician to bring us back to baseline, only for the politically illiterate populace to give it right back to an illiterate politician to be president. So yes, Latinos are very much illiterate about American politics. That's why they vote for the people that want to escort them expeditiously out of this country. Asian people are politically illiterate. That's why they help promote and push legislation that stop their children from being able to get into some of these good schools. White people are politically illiterate because that's why their farms are being sold to tech companies, because they voted their farms to go to tech companies. They voted to have their farms destroyed and taken away from them. Their political illiterateness, right, had them voluntarily give away the greatest distribution of welfare in the history of mankind when white folks gave them all that free land, the Homestead Act, back in the day, right, after they took land away from us, the 40 acres and a mule, right? And didn't give a shit. But if you want to survive, all of y'all are going to have to become politically literate. And it doesn't take that much. Just a little bit of research, all right? It may not be as entertaining as a celebrity junk. It might not be as entertaining as what Tasha K got to say, all right? It may not be entertaining like watching basketball, football, Real Housewives of Atlanta. It may not be as entertaining as watching the latest beef, but it's important for your life and for the future of your family. That's why when I talk illiterate people come to my comment section, I give them a few. Once I realize they're low IQ, gone. Because I don't waste my time talking to illiterate people who can't make a point, who just only knows how to straw man, overtalk, filibuster, because those are the only shallow tactics they can use in a argument that they like to call debates. Okay? Anyway, you guys tell me what you think in the comment section. This is Afro Think Tank. Learn something, teach something. I'm out.
When you hear people say there's a literacy crisis, this is what they mean.
No. What do you mean? Jasmine not going to Congress for Texas? Oh, Crockett. A girl can only dream. Listen, Jasmine, what was that one quote that you said? Let me think. Oh, yeah. We done picking cotton. You can't pay us enough to go find a plantation. Yeah, you remember that. I remember that. How could I forget? See, 6.5 million Hispanic voters in Texas, which is like the majority of the electoral vote here in the state. And you mean to tell me that you think that we're still picking cotton? Hell no, girl. Hell no. That's why you lost.
A literacy crisis literally means that people are illiterate. And that doesn't mean that they can't read. So they make some meaning, but it's very surface level. The higher order thinking skills that are needed for critical thinking, making inferences, drawing conclusions, they don't have them. This lady actually thought, and she's not an anomaly, that when Jasmine Crockett said, "We're not picking cotton no more," that she was talking about the Latinx population picking cotton. If you are illiterate, you took that statement very literal. Trump and the rest of his regime won this election because people were illiterate. And they are making doubly sure that folks stay that way. We're not picking cotton no more. Making inferences, which means you would need to be familiar and knowledgeable of that reference and what she actually meant. She absolutely knows folks ain't picking cotton that way. The statement meant that we won't be your slaves anymore too. You know what? Never mind. There is a literacy crisis and a push to make sure people stay illiterate. All right, good people.
Donald Trump is the exact type of president that is elected in a country where more than 50% of the population cannot read above a 6th grade level. This man is the illiterates president. And a lot of people don't know this, but white people make up the majority of illiterate people in the United States. Every time I see this man speak in public, not only do I get secondhand embarrassment, but I genuinely feel like I'm going crazy asking myself how someone who is that stupid can even receive one freaking vote. But it's not difficult when you consider that a lot of his voters voted for him because they see themselves in him. He is accessible to them. With his limited vocabulary, his poor emotional intelligence, his predatory ways, these people see themselves in him. In his book, Amusing Ourselves to Death, Neil Postman talks exactly about this. Something interesting that he mentioned is how a lot of the founding fathers and presidents of the past would not actually be elected in today's America. A lot of our early presidents were elected based on their credentials. A lot of them were lawyers, academics. These men were also amazing orators. They were great speakers. They didn't get on stage babbling, making jokes like a fucking baboon. People would literally go to presidential debates and these men would be talking for hours, and they had the attention of their constituents. But you cannot separate politics from entertainment in today's America. And you can see exactly that. Politics in this country is sports. People care more that their politicians are funny, attractive, well-dressed, well-groomed. They prioritize all of these superficial qualities over their actual credential. People's ideas are formed by mainstream media, by television. And who owns all of that? People who cannot read and do not have access to the written word, they do not have critical thinking skills. They are more susceptible to propaganda. They are extremely gullible. They are at the will and mercy of what people on television tells them. They have poor historical awareness. They literally cannot think for themselves. And this is how we end up, especially with someone like Donald Trump. If credentials were even part of the equation, this man wouldn't have been able to run in the first place. But he makes his followers laugh. He makes these people feel something. He appeals to their hatred because they know nothing better. And that's why he can spout all of these lies about immigration, about the crime stats, about healthcare, and they will believe him because a lot of them don't actually have the tools to disprove it in the first place. They can't read. If they can read, it's not at a high level. They're not intellectually curious.
Stop talking about Latinos when you know nothing about Latinos. Y déjame adivinar por qué tú crees que yo no soy Latina, mi amor. Shh. Because you're literally proving my exact point that the Latino community should not be treated as a monolith during political campaigns because we are all different and experience life differently. Therefore, we vote differently. Porque tú ves una morenita como yo tan linda y de una vez asumas que yo no sé el español, que yo no soy latina, que yo no sé nada de la cultura latina, etc., etc., etc. Afro-Latinos and Indigenous Latinos have been telling you guys for years, probably decades, about treating the Latino community like a monolith during political campaigns. It will never work. We are all so different. Outside of America, it is different countries, it is different races, it is different everything, and we do not move like a unit the way you guys think that we do. Y esto es un ejemplo perfecto porque desde que la gente latina me ve a mí, muchas veces, not all, they automatically assume that there's no way that I'm Latina too. And for this reason, the moment that I start to speak out against, racism, colorism, xenophobia, misogynoir, and et cetera, things that I have experienced within the Latino community, people are really quick to come and try to shut me the fuck up because there's no way that I'm a part of the community. And we all know exactly why that is.
So when y'all talk like this, I want you to know I'm aware that you're politically illiterate and likely just illiterate across the board. Here's the thing. Having a principled position against genocide, that does not mean that you're going to be this Jill Stein supporter, right? And just even associate that positioning with Jill Stein, it only shows your limitations. It only shows your lack of principles, right? I think a lot of you simply believe your basis of if you're intelligent, if you're somebody who engages in critical thinking, is comparing yourself to MAGA. And I want you to know, outside of just simply a superiority complex, y'all are the same. This is a blue MAGA type of position. It's no critical thinking. It's let me support my candidate. Let me have a cult of personality around somebody, despite the reality. So here's the reality. Israel was going to be taken care of regardless. You don't see them struggling under this Trump administration. So what does that mean? She could have easily lied and got in office. She could have easily appeased these voters that y'all just hate so much, like the Muslims, like could have entertained, but she didn't. She chose Israel over you, over other black women, right? This whole, let's contextualize it. It didn't have to be this way. And the fact that y'all are still trying to argue that it's the voters' fault for not supporting a candidate and not the onus on the candidate whose job they're running. They have to do things in order to receive support. Y'all are wanting essentially affirmative action voting for Harris. Y'all essentially, that whole DEI voting, that's what y'all want. She's a black woman. She's this, so it's on the voters to support her. Not her to appease, not her to, motivate voters to support her. Y'all are honestly losers because at least MAGA, the cult of personality they have, they're getting some of the things that they want. Y'all don't get anything and still blame marginalized. Y'all still attack Muslims. Y'all are losers, just like the candidate that lost.
Luis, why do you think Latinos vote Republican? This is like a 2-hour conversation. I'm going to try to put it in 3 minutes. There's a few parts of it, but the main one is that we are a one-issue party voting structure. If you start breaking out in districts and budget and laws and a bunch of other shit, you lose them. But if you keep it simple and an arroz habichuela, like we say in Puerto Rico, then it's easier and then you can sell them on anything. Abortion, bad. You don't like abortion. You're religious. Therefore, do not vote for the people that want abortion. Those people are bad. We are good. And then they're like, oh, okay, good. Immigrants, take your job. Illegals, you are legal. You're good. They always keep it to these little snippets, stupid talking points. And people buy into it. And unfortunately, it's mostly poorly educated people. Just like Trump said, he liked the poorly educated. The much larger underlying problem, and the one that I think affects us the most, is white supremacy and colonization. It's two-tiered, but it comes kind of together. Because through that, Hispanics or Latinos or the Latina community or whatever, they have been taught that religion and finding God is the way to go. That religion was imposed hundreds of years ago. And to this day, they still hold it true. And they use religion as a method and an instrument of control. And they take that religion and they use it against them. They say, well, if you believe in these things and these traditional values, vote for us, because the other party doesn't believe in any of that stuff. Even if they're voting against themselves, it's Stockholm. They don't see it, but it is there. Voting through religion and through religious beliefs is how they get to control them. That is why I hate religion, because it permeates on everything. On your life, on your politics, on your work, on everything that you do. It is the ultimate tool of control when you think about it. And conservatives thrive on that. On fear, on somebody being sent by God, on you're going to hell, and all this bullshit. And people buy into it. Especially Latinos, because of colonization. They bought into it. They've been heavily brainwashed. And also substantial is also white supremacy, you know? They want to have proximity to whiteness. That's why when you're dating a white person in Puerto Rico, they say mejorando la raza. Oh, you're bettering the race. They have been taught since the process of colonization started that the closer you are to whiteness, the better and purer you are. They're not even aware of it. It's like in their reptilian brain, it's activated in some weird way and they don't even think about it. It takes a lot of self-improvement and self-awareness and process of thought to understand these things. But people just don't have the propensity or the time to do so, you know? Hopefully they'll wake up soon because they are voting against their own fucking interests and in favor of their own demise. Que tenga un buen día.
So we have the worst education almost in the large world, the world that people know about.
You know, I think that voting for Donald Trump is like an intelligence test for Americans. And if you're voting for Donald Trump, you have failed.
I'm reading the Texas primary ballot sheets, and I noticed that there are some propositions on here that they're different for Republicans and Democrats so that they can decide what they should be platforming on. And it's scary and it's weird because the Democrats are asking, should Texas expand Medicaid and ensure access to affordable health care? The Republicans are asking, should we prohibit denial of health care or medical services based on patients' vaccination status? Let's try a different one. Texas should fund all public schools at the same per pupil rate as the national average. That sounds pretty reasonable. Texas should require public schools to teach that life begins at fertilization. Like, this isn't even voting on the same function. Right? Right? Like, this is nuts.
The way we got in this situation is pretty simple to explain. Basically, when Nixon was discovered having committed Watergate, people thought the Republican Party was washed up. But a clever staffer on in Nixon's White House came up with an idea for how to get more new Republican voters to replace all the people that were turned off by the corruption that had just been exposed, and perhaps save the party. His name was Lee Atwater. And he said, I know where there's all kinds of disgruntled white people. All you got to do is appeal to them over their anger about the end of Jim Crow and about school desegregation and about the Civil Rights Act. And these are the words that you'll say to kind of trigger them. Then we call these the racist dog whistles. And you will send a message to them that they are welcome in the Republican Party. And starting in the mid-70s to the mid-80s, there was a massive change in voter registration from Democrat to Republican on the part of all these racists and lowlifes and ignorant people. At the same time, Trump started to have political ambitions. Now, it turns out Trump has an IQ of about 73. He barely functions as an adult. If it were not for the fact that his father gave him a lot of money, he wouldn't be able to function as an adult. Trump has less money now than he would have had if he'd just taken the money he got from his father and put it in an index fund in the stock market and just let it sit. But he's gradually played around with it all these years and lost it in all his lawsuits and so forth, and his 6 bankruptcies, and he's dissipated a fortune over his lifetime. Now, he's had the Russians for the last 20 years to bail him out, but ordinary people cannot be as dumb as Trump and still function. But Trump came out onto the public stage and started talking boldly like he wanted to do things politically and help the people of America. And he speaks like a third grader, because that's what somebody with an IQ of 73 talks like, even if they're an adult. Linguists have analyzed his speech, and they've made it plain. He speaks English at a third grade level. This energized dumb people, because for the first time they could understand a presidential candidate. And they said things like, "Oh, he speaks his mind. He's the first guy that doesn't use a bunch of fancy words and confuse me." Now I finally understand what he's saying. And of course, what he was saying was a lot of things they wanted to hear. They were the racist dog whistles. And so you had a beautiful alliance from their perspective of racists and stupid people. The lower 12% of the IQ distribution corresponds perfectly to Trump's supporters. Now, these people are so intelligent that there's actually a federal statute that prohibits their induction into military service. They didn't want to have a repeat, Congress didn't want to have a repeat of the McNamara's Morons incident from Vietnam, which is a notorious thing you can look up on your own. McNamara's Morons, it's called. Basically, we had a Secretary of Defense who had the idea that, hey, why don't we recruit low intelligence people, send them to war and see what happens. And what happened was they died in droves, and of course things got worse. And so they didn't want that to happen again, so they actually passed a law. You're not allowed to recruit and induct into military service the lowest 12% on the IQ range. But they're still allowed to vote, and Trump energized them. He made dumb people think that they finally understood politics. He made people strut around proud of themselves, thinking that they had a grasp of the issues, because they could tell on some level that Trump wasn't much smarter than they were, but there he was, a big shot. So he seemed like a champion for them. Now, of course, all these people forget that they aren't rich. They didn't have a dad hand them the equivalent of $412 million. And they can't do the things that Trump does, and they can't get away with the things Trump has gotten away with. And even Trump himself is not going to get away with them indefinitely. But the stage has been set, and this is where we're at. Basically, we have a fanatical core of low intelligence voters that are solidly behind Trump. They will back him no matter what he does or says, because they don't care what he does or says. They just know he's their guy. They understand him. They like him. He talks to them in a way that they can comprehend, and they are fanatical in their support of him. He has given them what they see as dignity and strength. And then at the other end of the spectrum are smart people from all walks of life. I actually used to be a Republican myself. I'm ashamed to admit it now, but I know I'm not alone. I mean, millions of people who make sure that they turn out to vote against Trump used to be actual Republicans, because the Republican Party is now nothing but a loony bin of the very low intelligent, and there's just no way that you can be associated with them at all. So now it's going to be, some range of conservative to liberal Democrats again, except that it'll mean something different than it used to mean. I mean, those Democrats won't be conservative because they're racist garbage people from the South. They'll be conservative because they have some other philosophy about the role of the market or of private enterprise or something like that in the economy. At any rate, this is the problem we have. It's basically now just the very low intelligent versus the high intelligence. And the thing is going to be decided by undecided people who don't pay any attention. People in the middle that don't pay attention to politics, no matter whether the politicians are smart or dumb. They just show up on election day and try to do their best. Those are the people you have to reach. You have to get them interested. You have to explain to them what's going on. They have to be told Trump is a moron and he wants to be a dictator. And he's got a million morons behind him that want him to be a dictator. We cannot let that happen.
You have no excuse to not know about politics. You have no excuse to not know about politics, especially at your big age. You may not know about politics, but you are affected because of politics every single day. And you need to learn about them, because being an adult and not knowing what's going on in the world and how it affects you and others is gross. You're an adult. And I'm speaking on behalf of people who are Nicki Minaj fans, because I cannot tell you how many TikToks I've seen that people are like, oh, well, Nicki's the queen of rap and I don't know about politics, and that's where you lost me. That is where you fucking lost me. Because what? Screaming until you're blue in the face that Nicki's the queen of rap is not paying you a livable wage. It's not giving you free healthcare. It's not fighting systemic racism and homophobia and transphobia. But hey, Nicki's the queen of rap. I think it's one thing to say that Nicki has done so much for the music industry, in which she has, but it's another thing to get on TikTok and be like, well, I'm gonna stand by her no matter what, because music shit aside, that is completely separate. Y'all are so far up that lady's ass that you have thrown out your moral compass over someone who doesn't even know you exist. But to get on this app talking about, well, I don't know about no politics, but yeah, I could tell. What a privilege it is to say, oh, well, I don't get into politics. Maybe you should, because you're affected by them. Unless you're a rich white man who's also straight, yeah, Get into politics.
FBA ideology is very dangerous because while it claims to be pro-Black American, it is aggressively pro-American. And you can't be pro-American to a country whose fundamentals are anti-Blackness and call it liberation. But you know what you can call it? White nationalism. Because that's exactly how right-wing politics work. They tell Black people to disengage, to stop resisting, and to prioritize loyalty to the U.S. state over solidarity with other Black people. This isn't new either, because at every Black liberation movement, there were always people who said, now is not the time, don't rock the boat. There were Black people who opposed slave revolts, sit-ins. Of course, disengagement is less exhausting, but are you going to be the person to stand up for what's right, or are you going to be the person in the back of the bus telling Rosa to just comply, you want to go home?
Arizona's Governor Jan Brewer just approved a bill banning ethnic studies classes in public schools.
And now that they've eradicated Mexican American studies from the schools, they can focus on other ethnicities.
Honestly, this law won't be applied to any other of our courses. It was strictly written for one course, which is the Mexican American Studies program.
What about the African American Studies program?
The African American Studies program is still there. It's not teaching the resentment of a race or class of people.
I'm a Black kid. Try to teach me about slavery without me feeling resentment towards white people.
How am I going to teach you about slavery? Slavery was okay, now I got to figure out how. Okay, the white man did bring over the Africans.
The more he taught me about Black history, the more I realized Arizona has figured out the right way to teach it.
We now have a Black man as a president. You know, Rosa Clark did not take on a gun and go onto a bus and hold up everybody.
Sadly, the peaceful lessons of Rosa Clark are lost on the radical reactionaries teaching Mexican American studies.
Not too much on my dad. He's got a graduate degree and he was the provost of a college before he retired. The man is smart. Education was his thing. But if I asked him how to spell a word or something about history, he was not about to give me the answer. Instead, I get the same response every single time. Look it up. Not only did I have to find the answer, but I had to come back and tell him what I learned. At the time, I thought he was making my life harder. Why couldn't you just tell me? You already know it. Come on. But now I get it. That man wasn't just teaching me facts. He was teaching me how to think. Because once you start looking things up, you realize something real quick. Not all the answers are going to be handed to you. And the ones that are, they're not always the truth. And if you think America's school system is here to give people the truth, you haven't been paying attention. America loves to act like education is some sort of great equalizer. If you study hard and you do well, you're just going to be set, right? But if that were true, why is literacy still an issue in this country? In early America, literacy wasn't for everybody. Wealthy white men? Of course, yes. Black and indigenous people? Absolutely not. After slavery, Black Americans built their own schools, only for them to be defunded, attacked, or downright just burnt to the ground. Jim Crow literacy tests weren't about education. They were about keeping Black people from voting. And today, although the barriers are a little different, they're still there. Now we've got technology, access to books, and more information at our fingertips than we've ever had before. So why do 43 million adults in America struggle with literacy? Public school funding gets cut every year. Critical thinking is not prioritized, even though standardized test scores are. And in some places, schools won't even teach accurate history. Not to mention Trump just signed that executive order dismantling the Department of Education. Fabulous. Now, why are they doing all of this? Because an educated population asks questions. And asking questions, that's dangerous to the people who want to control the answers. It's why some states are banning books. It's why history lessons get rewritten. It's why financial literacy, media literacy, and research skills aren't being emphasized in school. Because if people learn to research and comprehend things for themselves, they stop believing the lies. Here's what my dad really gave me: the ability to never stop questioning. Because knowledge isn't something you wait to be given. You go find it. Because history is bigger than what they teach in school. Because knowing how to spell a word is one thing, knowing how to decode and dissect information is another. And once you have that skill, nobody can take it from you. That's why I share what I learn. That's why I research. That's why I don't just accept the version of events that people want us to believe. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's this: the truth is out there. It's just not going to be handed to you. You've got to go get it. And once you do, come back and share it. Because that's how real education happens.
And you know the type of people that get on my nerves? The people that be like, I don't do politics. Politics finna do you? You see them tariffs? You see how high that food is at the grocery store? But you don't do politics. And now why the food so high? Why is the All-Star at Waffle House $12? It used to be $9. Huh? But you don't do politics. But now, because you don't do politics, I got to pay for $12 at the Waffle House for the All-Star. When it used to be $9. You piss me off. I don't do politics is doing you. At your big old age, you talking about I don't do no politics. Oh, I don't know what's going on because I don't do.
That Negroes vote for in the coming election.
I wouldn't suggest that they vote for any party or either party. I would suggest that the so-called Negroes become politically mature, realize the power that they hold in the field of politics, and then once the person who is running is aware that this man is awakened to the power that he holds, then that person who is running will approach that Negro on a more intelligent plane. As it is right now, most of the Negro leaders sell out to the white politicians for crumbs. And an awakening, a political awakening among Negroes will make it impossible for the present Negro leaders to sell our people out as they've been doing in the past.
Well, you do think Negroes should vote?
Negroes should do whatever is necessary to bring about a complete solution to their problem. When I say whatever is necessary, they should have the flexibility to do whatever is necessary to solve.
Free Sudan! Boycott diamonds and gold! Free Sudan! Boycott diamonds and gold! We most definitely cannot forget about the people of Sudan.
Thanks for watching Afro Think Tank. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And follow me on Substack and Patreon for more content. Remember, it's Pan-Africanism or nothing.